This is the story of a bloody cat and how it almost got me arrested. On a Friday evening, my family and I left our home in the city and drove about an hour to visit my girlfriend who lived in a small village in the mountains. While we were driving up this curvy mountain road, we had no idea that there was a bloody incident waiting for us at her house. The moment we arrived, her 3 cats started meowing very loudly, which was weird because they're usually silent. It was then that we saw what the problem was. There was a trail of blood leading from the front door all the way to the backyard. "Oh my God," we said, thinking it belonged to one of the cats, but then we realized that it was coming from the cat flap. So something must have gotten in or out of the house. We opened the front door and stepped inside, and that's when we saw it, a pair of big, bright green eyes staring back at us from the corner of the room. We called out, "Who's there?" But all we got in return was a hiss. Then the eyes disappeared. "That's strange," we said. Her 3 cats stared at us motionlessly, as if they were watching something on TV. They kept their eyes fixed on the same spot in the corner. Then one of them suddenly let out a meow. It sounded like a scream. The other 2 cats joined in, and soon the whole house reverberated with their loud screams. We could hear them from all around us, behind the walls, above our heads. It was like they were mocking us. We were terrified. What was going on? Was there some wild animal in the house with us? My girlfriend and I started screaming at each other, asking each other to leave. She started dialing 911 while I walked around the house trying to find the source of the noise. The cats were now running around frantically, jumping onto furniture, climbing curtains. It looked like a horror movie. I looked under the bed, behind the wardrobe, but couldn't find anyone. Finally, I lifted the blanket on the sofa and found a pair of big green eyes staring back at me. It was a huge cat, unlike any I'd ever seen before. It had long, sharp claws, fangs, and its fur was matted and dirty. I screamed and jumped back, tripping over a chair in the process. It hissed and slowly got off the sofa. It then turned around and disappeared under the bed. My girlfriend and I ran out of the house, leaving our stuff behind. We were too scared to go back in. We didn't care about our stuff anymore. We just wanted to get away from that horrible house and the monster living in it. We got into my car and sped away. As we drove down the mountain road, we could still hear the cats screaming in the distance. "What was that thing?" I asked, shaken. "I don't know," she replied, "but I think it might be a bobcat." "A bobcat, huh?" Maybe she was right. We never went back to her house to check. The next day, however, we started getting worried about the cats. We hadn't heard from them since the night before, so we decided to go back and check on them. We arrived at the house and knocked on the door. When no one answered, we opened the door and stepped inside. And that's when we saw it. All 3 of the cats were dead. Their eyes were wide open, staring blankly ahead. Their bodies were stiff and cold, and there were bite marks all over them. Whatever had attacked them had done so with extreme violence. But that wasn't the only thing we found. As we walked further into the house, we saw that there was blood everywhere. It was on the walls, on the furniture, on the floor. It looked like a massacre. We were horrified. What had happened here? Who or what had killed the cats? We called the police and told them what we'd found. They sent a forensic team to the house to investigate, and that's when things got really bad for me. The forensic team found blood in several places inside the house, but they couldn't determine whose it was. The local vet took one look at the cats and said that they'd been killed by a wild animal, but wouldn't say anything more than that. It was then that the police came for me. They brought me down to the station and started asking me questions about what had happened. "Do you know of any wild animals in the area that could have done this?" they asked. "No," I replied. "There are deer and rabbits, but nothing that could do this." "Are you sure you didn't do this?" they asked suspiciously. "What?" I exclaimed. "Me? No, of course not. Why would you think I did this?" Because we found your fingerprints on the murder weapon, they said grimly. It turned out that the vet had found a bloodied meat cleaver near one of the dead cats, and that my fingerprints were on it. I was horrified. I must have picked it up while trying to move one of the cats. I explained this to the police, but they weren't buying it. They kept asking me questions, trying to get me to confess, but I had no idea what they were talking about. I didn't kill those cats. Finally, they let me go, but they warned me to keep my mouth shut. If I said anything that contradicted their story, they'd come back and arrest me. So I did what they told me to do. I kept quiet. But as time passed, I started getting more and more angry. I didn't kill those cats, so why am I being punished like I did? Everyone in town knew that I was innocent, but they still treated me like a murderer. No one wanted to talk to me. They all gave me weird looks and whispered behind my back. I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to do some investigating of my own. I went back to the house and started looking for clues. I found a few hairs on the floor, some of which belonged to a dog. I took the hairs to a lab and they tested positive for coyote DNA. Coyotes. So it was a wild animal after all. I went back to the police and told them what I'd found, but they didn't seem surprised. We already know that, they said. You're a lucky guy. If we hadn't found the evidence, you'd be looking at some serious jail time. Don't test our patience again. And with that, they let me go. Now, I thought that this would be the end of it, but a few months later, I got a call from the local animal control office. They asked me if I still lived at the same address, and I told them yes. Good, the man on the phone said. We'd like to ask you some questions about your pets. What about them? I asked. Were they involved in that incident at your girlfriend's house? What incident? I asked innocently. The man on the phone sighed. You know, the incident with the dead cats. Oh, that, I said, relieved. No, none of them were involved. That was a terrible tragedy, but it had nothing to do with me. After that, things returned to normal. My girlfriend and I moved into a new house and got new cats. One of them even looks just like the one in the story. Sometimes, though, I still have nightmares about the bloody cat. It's always lurking in the shadows, waiting for me to turn my back so it can strike. If you want to see another short, click on this video. Thanks for watching.